Is it what's worse, the L or the rainforest that's happening in our hallway of the hotel currently? I had to traverse through the Amazon to get to your room.
I was in the bathroom and I was like, oh, that must be somebody watching like a nature program next door. Oh no.
No, it's our hallway.
It's our hallway. Hey everybody. Hi. We'll just give everyone a second here. We're laughing because we're at a hotel in Chicago that is literally playing like wilderness songs.
But like specifically like birds.
Yeah.
Like I don't hear like lions roaring. It's literally like a rainforest exhibit at Disney.
Yeah. It's like Rainforest Cafe.
Yeah.
Which I passed on the taxi and I was like, I forgot that was a thing that happened.
These are still in business? Okay.
Who knows?
We learn something new every day here in Chicagoland.
We do. All right. Are we ready?
Yes, indeed. We're going to start
the countdown and get in. Hey, y'all.
And we're back.
And we're back. And we're going to empathy exercises as promised. But before we get into it, in case you missed my, oh, hello.
Blue.
Hello, Blue. Hello, beautiful people. Thank you. You are also beautiful. And we say hi to you.
Hello.
In case you didn't see my stutters and stops on Instagram
You
Live.
did a great job.
Thank you. I'm learning. It's a skill. We have to work on it. We're moving some of our empathy exercises there. So on Mondays, we'll be doing like appetizer empathy exercises, ones that we think you should know about, but we're not going to discuss, not the meatier options for empathy. And then on Fridays, if we have any updates, we'll be popping on Instagram, IGTV, as it's called.
Erin's so excited she knows that now. Don't worry.
It's just I'm popular.
We're bringing her into the 21st century, guys. It's okay.
It's okay. So on Fridays we'll be doing those updates, and then as per usual on our Tuesdays we'll be doing our meaty empathy exercises. So without further ado, let's jump into those. Dr. D.
So this is really exciting because we are not talking about vaccines really anywhere but America, here in America. And whenever I tell people that international travel still makes me really nervous, and they're like, right, but we're all already almost vaccinated. I don't know if y'all can see that headline here on the video, but for anyone on the podcast, I will read it for you. These African countries have fully vaccinated 10% of their population. And it goes on to say, I believe it's like, if you could scroll down, Erin.
Yep, I can scroll down. Sorry, learning this, okay. Folks. We're scrolling. 15 countries, including South Africa, Mauritius, Morocco, and Rwanda, have met the target of 10% of their populations. That's it. 15 countries on that island, and the goal was 10% of the population. 10%. And what are we at? 50, I think, in the United States?
In the United States, and we're panicking, which, like, in terms of vaccine distribution, the US should be higher because we have the infrastructure to make it happen. So, like, that's fine. But when we talk about global rates, this is a real issue. So we just want to raise, like, I have a friend who is in rural Liberia who's essentially been told that they'll get the vaccine in 2025. So, I mean, this is a global pandemic.
Yeah.
And we have very quickly lost sight of the global once we got a hold of the vaccine here in the United States. So please remember, this is still a global pandemic.
Yes. And we are trying to balance the need to vaccinate folks where we can and the need to distribute and help these places that don't have vaccine access equity or availability. So,
and this is another reminder as to why the phrase "let's get back to normal" is garbage. It's not A, possible, but B, also the pandemic isn't even close to over.
Isn't even anywhere close.
Anywhere close.
10%. 10%.
And that was the goal. And like 15, that I can't even get over the goal was 10%.
Yes, we agree with you, Jay. We hadn't seen these numbers either. I don't know if you had. You follow Africa.
Yeah. So if anyone is looking for a good Twitter follow, Africa is a Country is one of the most comprehensive Twitter accounts that really makes sure that everybody is covering, understands everything, that Africa is in fact not a country. Yeah. So that's where I found this data, was Africa is a Country's Twitter feed.
Cool. All right. Empathy exercise numero dos. Really exciting news from our friends at Pantene, or Pantene if you're in the UK. We never said
it's Pantene.
It's Pantene, but
they can all get over it.
But thank you. They have hired the blind social media disability activist Lucy Edwards. She's also a BBC reporter. I couldn't find if this was the first hard of sight or blind person that they had hired to be one of their ambassadors. That information was not readily available when this news dropped, but it's super exciting. She has made quite a name for herself on social media platforms, discussing what it's like to live in the world as a blind person. And might I just say, in this photograph, her hair looks stunning.
Yeah, she really should be a Pantene spokesperson.
Yeah.
1.7 million follows on TikTok, 400,000 subscribers on YouTube. Lucy is very skilled in the art of being on camera. And so very, very excited to, when we go to that home, excited to see her in commercials.
I know. And I think one of the things she says, I'm just scrolling down, that I read, is she said, I love beauty, I love looking good, but there is an assumption that because I can't see, I don't care. And I think that's really the core of this empathy exercise, right? Is that we make a series of assumptions based on folks that they no, just, she has a different way to access fashion than we do because she can't see it, but doesn't mean she doesn't care about it. So way to go, Lucy. Excited to see your glorious red locks in Pantene adverts.
Yeah.
Yes, AP, thank you. I wasn't as prepared for this as Dr. Kristen. Apologies, folks. We're ironing out some wrinkles. I think all the other ones are mine.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. So this one I found, it was interesting to me. If you remember hearing about Caster Semenya, she is working on her memoir, talking about being an intersex woman with a naturally high testosterone level, which has at times made her ineligible for competition. So it's not really something we spend a lot of time talking about, except when she would get disqualified for testing with those high levels of testosterone. So excited that this memoir is upcoming. I will imagine Dr. Kristen will be reading it and doing a review for it on our Abby Research Reads, because Homegirl loves a memoir.
I do.
And we're, excited to learn more about somebody who lives in a different spot on the sexuality and gender spectrum than we do.
Especially because Semenya is South African, and of course, life looks different there for intersex folks than some other places. So really excited to hear growing up what is going on.
I know. I was just making sure. I have to switch between screens, making sure we don't have any comments we're missing. All right, next up, also mine, nothing but joy for you folks. But again, a really important empathy exercise. There was a study released last week in the United States showing that I believe 140,000 children in the United States have lost a parent or grandparent caregiver to COVID-19. The majority of these children are from racial or ethnic minority marginalized group backgrounds. This means for every 4 COVID deaths, one child was left without a mother or father or guardian or caregiver. And the knock-on effects of that are quite significant. We already know this from when young folks lose their guardians and the people.
Shit. Sorry.
Ooh. Sorry, everybody.
Sorry, everybody.
Woo. Woo.
Ooh, hey, Hot Corners.
Hey, this is my laptop, Dr. Kristen.
I was trying to be hopeful.
You're doing great. Long-term effects. That's what I'm scrolling down to. Because this is, file this under our constant rant that we can't go back to normal. Because what does normal look like for these 140,000 humans who we know are statistically more likely to suffer mental health crises, increased suicide risks, they have increased exposure to sexual and physical and emotional violence and exploitation, higher rates of drug abuse, and healthcare, housing, and education factors all like work together in those instances. So it's worth remembering that even if and when we get COVID more under control, we're still going to be dealing with this changed world for the rest of our lives, and finding ways to help and support these young people who have lost, their support system and are going to need extra help to just get through it. So it was harrowing news, but important news to point out, because we don't often talk about, we talk a lot in the United States about how many people have died from COVID and how many people are vaccinated, but we don't spend as much time talking about the people that have been left behind. So,
yeah, and this also brings up an interesting point that I've been thinking about a lot, is that there's a lot of cultures with very specific grieving rituals, and COVID has, of course, disrupted all of them. COVID has, essentially prohibited that grieving. So that's going to be really something that those particular cultures are going to have to navigate, especially I think a lot about my friends, that I have a dear friend who lost a grandparent, and who the grandparent, they are Reformed Jewish, and sitting Shiva is very important. Well, they weren't allowed to have the body and kind of all that other stuff. And she's just one story in millions. Yeah. So this is something else.
Something else to consider and bear in mind as we go through this period of our lives, trying to hold as much grace for others as we can. All right. Last but not least, quasi good news. You'll note our skepticism about this doesn't have anything to do with basketball, in case you were confused by that advert at the top there. The Golden Globes, Hollywood Foreign Press Association, has decided to partner with the NAACP to help with its problem around diversity. I haven't really read the article because I really just stopped at that headline, and Dr. Kristen and I had a wee rant about it, because while we're excited to see that HFPA acknowledges that they might need some help in, navigating these waters, the NAACP is focused on the advancement of colored people. They are a Black activist organization. Not to say that they don't do work for other marginalized groups, but that's the focus.
It's their bread and butter.
That's what they do. And yeah, HFPA has a problem with Black equity and inclusivity. They have a problem with inclusivity across the board.
They have a problem with body inclusivity, sexuality inclusivity, gender inclusivity, class inclusivity,
religion inclusivity,
linguistic inclusivity, even bizarrely. Yeah. And they have problems with ability inclusivity. Pick a feature, they're pretty shit at it.
So unless this is the first announcement in a series of partnerships where they will then be partnering with other organizations that hit a different intersection they've been missing, I'm a little nervous about this, especially because what did we just have? The Emmys?
Yeah.
The Emmys, where they went real into having as many Black folks visible as possible in terms of hosts, musicians, announcers, presenters, like people performing songs, during the broadcast or whatever. And then not a lot of non-white folks won. So a little skeptical. We're pretty skeptical of of HFPA at this stage. You have to do a lot of work, guys, to get the good doctors back on board. We'll keep a weather eye on this one. But this is always one of our favorite reminders. Real inclusivity means more than just Black and white.
We have a TED Talk they might like to see.
She hops in some red circles and drops some knowledge on this from time to time.
Happy to forward a link, HFPA. Just let me know where I send it.
It's live on the YouTubes.
Yeah.
All right. Those were the empathy exercises. Threw it in half the time of last week. Good job, us.
All right. So let's talk about Brit.
Let's talk about Brit.
First of all, let's have a celebration. James Spears is no longer the conservator of Britney's estate. Yay! We are thrilled to death, obviously, that her incredibly negligent, malfeasant mess of a father is no longer in charge. We have watched both the most recent New York Times documentary and the Netflix documentary. Somehow, and I have listened to Emily D. Baker's most recent coverage. I have been reading up on the Britney Law Army Twitter feed, and somehow we just keep getting more angry.
Yeah.
Not entirely sure how that's possible.
We learned a lot from those two documentaries.
We did.
And that upset me that there was that much I didn't know.
Yeah. So a couple quick things. Overall, I do not see how there is anyone that will be able to refute that this situation was abusive.
Yeah.
Moving forward. How it got to that place is going to be a lot of lawsuits, the discovery process of a lot of lawsuits. I think what's going to really happen. We can rant for a long time about what an absolute pile of garbage that whole thing was. But there's a couple points that specifically kind of on a meta scale we want to bring up and keep reminding. First of all, there is a massive problem with guardianship and conservatorship systems in this country. We are not familiar with them around the world. So international viewers and listeners, if your country has something like this that is also hella problematic, please let us know.
Probably, because most institutions are.
Most institutions are. So here's one of the statements that we want to really highlight is that somebody who's a conservatorship lawyer said that he had represented dozens even, and none of them had ever had a job. So this is designed for people who really cannot care for themselves. And here in the United States, we do not have many institutions for which people who cannot care for themselves or make decisions can become wards of the state. Like that's a bridge we're really trying hard not to do.
Yeah.
And so we have this kind of middleman thing. We have this conservatorship system. The issue on the table, and a lot of disability advocates have been bringing this up throughout the Free Britney movement, is that the fundamental point of a conservatorship is that the person is not capable of making their own decisions.
Yeah.
So they therefore legally do not exist.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was what was the one we watched in Charlotte? That was the New York Times one.
Yes.
Where the conservatorship lawyer was like, conservatorships are referred to as a civil death. And we had to pause for a second, and I was like, that's what I mean by new information in terms of framing what it is and what it meant specifically for Britney Spears, but what it means for other people as well. And, they make the argument that conservatorships are for people who literally cannot feed and clothe themselves. And in what world a judge agreed that Britney Spears needed one when she was feeding and clothing her entire family through working, 300 days a year or whatever? For me, that was the calling it a civil death was such a helpful framework for understanding what it means when a person is put in this position.
So, hi, Sasha. Welcome. So glad that you joined us.
Hi, Sasha.
The second kind of point that I will say, besides that conservatorship, and we'll come back to any of these, or if any folks have questions about kind of the meta narratives of this, is that the other thing that will continue to infuriate me is that James Spears was automatically trusted because he was her father. And that there was no question of James Spears' character, who at that point had not ever held down a job, really. And upon entering Britney's life, had been estranged from her for a long time, was an alcoholic, but she wasn't allowed to do drink at all and still get her kids. The fact that he did the nuclear option every single time she did something, that he would take away her children, tells us that at no point in time was this at all about the care and feeding of his daughter. This was entirely about the control of her career, which she had been shutting him out of since the Mickey Mouse Club.
Yeah.
And that the reason, like the fact that the first judge just like very calmly said, oh no, her father's fine. Her father has no qualifications to be a conservator. He has financial mismanagement all over the place. There's no reason that he could manage her estate. But the patriarchy trusts daddies. And it was very, well, he has to be a good guy because he's her father.
Right. And he has to know what's best for her. That was the thing that's like
absolutely mystifying.
Yeah. And it's the power. And we see this a lot, not just in conservatorships. And I think it's a good meta point to make, right? That we often rely on familial relationships as if that means there is a level of understanding and care necessary to look after that person. And Sasha just chimed in with the forced IUD was some of the worst parts. That for me, yes, when that news came out, that was shocking that she didn't have even bodily autonomy over that. But yeah, the fact that it was presumed because of a blood relationship, a familial relationship, that he would automatically be able to make decisions for a person who was in a crisis.
Yeah, and watching these documentaries, like she was in a place and she needed somebody to love her and care for her, but she didn't need a conservatorship.
No.
She needed a friend who could just get her the hell out of LA.
Yeah.
And like, there's a lot of things here. There's a lot of messes. There's a lot of all of it. But what I've been convinced of more than anything is that she's always known who her family was.
Yeah.
She's been a professional since she was 8. I think she was on Star Search. She's always known who these people are. And that's why she never turned to them for emotional support. That's why Jamie Lynn is not one of her best friends. That's why when she had these crises, she was reaching out to other people, like all of her boyfriends. And that was over and over again. All the men that were in her life that were interviewed in these documentaries were just like, she was just so lonely.
That was the thing for me, like that was so heartbreaking, was that she just clearly desperately wanted someone to trust.
Yeah.
And any person that she trusted, the conservatorship took away from her.
Yeah.
And even to, I can't remember his name, her boyfriend who was the paparazzi. Adnan for a number of years.
Shout out to Serial for that's why I remember that name.
And like, she started a relationship with him
because he was kind.
Because he was kind to her and she felt she could trust him. And I was like, this child needs to get out of this. That was really, really hard. And to see how much she just wanted to spend time with her children, and that was used against her, and that is used against any parent as a way to manipulate their behavior, is something truly heinous.
The third point that I want to bring up, and we've talked about this, is that just like Taylor Swift is, as we watch how she's been treated in the last 20 years, is how the world feels about feminism. Watching Britney Spears is how the world feels about the paparazzi and celebrity culture. And so we did a reel a couple weeks ago to remind us that anyone who clicked on a Just Jared or Perez Hilton post, we are complicit in this.
Yeah.
In the way that she was treated in 2006 to 2008. And we are complicit. We are not to blame, but we are complicit. And so what is this balance that now she's thanking her fans all the time? And I would say consent. She gets to control the narrative now that she controls her own Instagram. She gets to share with her she gets to share with us what she wants.
Yeah.
But do we really need pictures of people going grocery shopping? We do not. We do not.
No.
We don't need to consume those. We don't need to share them. We don't need to retweet them. We don't need to feed this industry that, as Adnan said, is for adrenaline junkies, because it's not about the humanity of the person.
No.
It's about hunting them for cash.
Yeah. And I mean, the predatory nature of it is really frightening, but also like there's a level that I didn't understand really what that must feel like. And I think some of these documentaries where they have all this footage of Britney really shows that she drove irresponsibly to get away from these. She was chased by these people.
That's Princess Diana's death.
Yeah. And so for me, what brought to mind in these two documentaries specifically really was how much she was incarcerated. and like I didn't realize that it was at that limit of control, at that level of control where she had no bodily autonomy, no control over her time, no control over how she was seen in the world, and was controlled all the time, and in a way that was very, very similar to folks who were incarcerated. And what was her crime? Like having a mental health crisis because of a divorce. Like, it was just crazy. But I also think, like, so important to remember that as we're watching people, especially people in the public, go through a crisis, A, it's none of our business. B, we are socially conditioned to judge them, as we were talking about. That it's clickbait for a reason. We are all socially conditioned to be like, oh my God, Paris Hilton is such a wreck.
Can you believe it?
Did you see this picture? Because we all want to be a part of this, like, you know, they're human or they're not better than us. And you know, we get sucked into that. So, you know, don't click on the pictures. Let them be human beings. Human beings make mistakes.
Yeah.
It's how they deal with those mistakes. Like, you know, Kanye West is a human being. I'm not a big fan of the way he's handled his blunders. I don't think he's learned from it, but I'm not rooting for his like downfall in that way.
And then I think this is a really interesting conversation too, with like the overlap of cancel culture. Like, essentially Britney and Paris and Lindsay were canceled in so many ways. We just fed on their carcasses. But Chris Brown is credibly accused of like battery.
Yeah.
And we have not canceled him.
Yeah. Oh, there's a huge, I mean, there's so many layers of gender, which is obviously we've had this conversation throughout the whole year as we keep talking about Britney Spears. And I know we've talked about it before. But the gender element of how we treated her and how we would treat a male celebrity, would he be in a similar situation, is worth always remembering and pointing out as well in terms of empathy. Because boy, that girl got, you know.
Yeah, I mean, look at what we did with Charlie Sheen, who was, you know, like.
Oh, yeah.
Which also, like, we all made fun of Tiger Blood. We don't need to do that anymore either, because he was in the throes of an addiction and mental health crisis. So we hopefully, as we have moved forward, we were actually talking to our interns yesterday about, do we think that curiosity has been heightened due to everyone being on lockdown and kind of access to each other in different ways? And do we think this has been, for the record, I think that it has been heightened about curiosity about other people. I think we're still severely lacking introspection, but I think we are getting, a little bit better at wondering what life is like for other folks. Who knows?
That was a layered statement, y'all.
Recovering from that.
Yeah.
But as I think about, like, now post-COVID to post-lockdown, I should say. Whenever I say post-COVID, I always mean post-lockdown, by the way. So, like, post-lockdown here in the States anyway, I know our friends in Australia are back in lockdown. Hi, guys. So in terms of post-American lockdown, are we thinking about a lot of these people more as humans? And I think there's just so many more questions. And I hope that as we continue to move forward, I do believe that this is one of the ways in which social media is used for good. We have access to stories. Hi, you've met us through this. We've got Indigenous folks on TikTok telling us how much their groceries cost, which most of us would have never encountered before this. And hopefully and celebrities reminding us that they are human beings. For instance, did anyone know? Did any of us know that Ryan Reynolds could sing before he did that TikTok? God love him. And you know, we see this biting some people in the butt, like Chrissy Teigen. She got really, really, really transparent, and then had to acknowledge kind of her past selves. And we're all kind of learning how to adult and human together in this way, especially millennials and elder millennials, honestly, because we're coming to grips with some stuff here in our 30s. So. Okay.
It's not easy, and it's work every day, but you know, that's why we show up on the YouTubes and the podcasts for y'all, because we believe it's really important work to have these conversations. And you know, the reason we study culture and talk about culture is because it provides us these opportunities to be like, let's pull back the layers on this. Let's have a discussion about what this means to be human.
Yeah.
and how we can do it a little bit better, because looking back at Miss Britney Jean, we weren't great at it.
Yeah. And Sasha, in our comment section, has brought Paris Hilton back into this conversation. That mental illness is used to incarcerate and control girls and women and AFAB people. That is completely true. We've been toying with the idea of covering Paris's self-made documentary. If that's something you guys are interested in, let us know. We'll bump that one up the list post TED Mania. We've got a schedule for the next little bit, but the next hottish take that we will be doing, we think, is going to be on the new HBO documentary on the Way Down workshop, which I was in. So we can talk about that process.
We will all be here to provide emotional support for Dr. Kristen
and my rants. But that's that. But if Paris is a conversation that people would like us to have, please let us know. We would love to do that.
Yeah, I think that's a wrap on our rambling thoughts about what we learned about Britney this week, that we wanted to share with you guys. We don't know what we're doing next week's GDD on. If you guys have thoughts and ideas, let us know. You know how to get a hold of us. Whatever we talk about, we'll be back then. But don't forget, if we have any updates for the empathy exercises we shared today, we'll see you on Instagram, IGTV, on Friday.
And if you're watching this live or in the replay crew before Thursday the 14th, remember to follow our Instagram for behind the scenes joy on TEDx Chicago, which happens on Thursday. We are in fact here at the Witt Hotel in Chicago for the second chapter of TEDx Mania.
I will be in charge of social media, posting the crap out of what's happening. So
it's going to be great. Sasha, we would love to talk to you. If you could shoot us an email. The email is in our channel description. We would love to have a conversation with you, and we can keep that going. Yeah. Pals, as always, thanks for joining us for this live. We're always honored when you give us your time, and we will talk to you soon. Bye.
Bye, everybody.